There's just no slick way to bring that music down, is there? Oh well. Let's just click a few buttons. Take that all the way out. Do. Clicking, clicking, clicking. Clicking, clicking, clicking. There we go. That's all gone through. Let's hit the button. Hello. There we go. That's better. So, usual trick for all of you folk, watching on Catch Up, the secret word. So if you're watching on Catch Up, this is the thing you have to do. Go down to the comments. If you're watching on Catch Up, the phrase this week is pogo stick. Don't put anything else. Just pogo stick. And we'll have some fun with that later. Folk rolling in. Remember to share the stream out, folks. Let's get as many people in as we possibly can. Though clearly it's working, which is really helpful. I have balanced this at such an awkward angle today, but it seems to be working all right for me, so that's fine. Everything is as it should be behind me as well, which is pretty cool. So we'll just let folk come in. Lots of bits and pieces. A few other bits, of course, have gone out tonight. Pretty sure Slapshot, Smackers have put out their new episode. Have Slapshot Syndicate put their episode out today? I thought they were doing it at 6. Yes, they have done. There we go. So plenty of stuff to keep tabs on. Evening to everyone. I'll do. I'll do what? Just hang on a second. Is that funny? No, that's fine. That's all muted too. There's some really good choices. I think I've asked the right warm-up question, haven't I, today? We got some good ones coming in. We got some really good ones coming in. Let's get rid of that. A few people coming in. But yeah, share stuff out, share the stream out. Why am I echoing? That's a bit odd. Shouldn't really be echoing on the stream. Okay, it's gone. How very strange. There we go, we'll do that there. Either way, what's that? Well, there we go. Interesting bit of NHL news right as we're starting the stream. Either way, let's get down to it. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful, and wacky world of the National Ice Hockey League structure. Here in Great Britain, we focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But of course, we're here to take you through absolutely anything and everything from the National Division, as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Good evening, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Hope you are all doing well. Things are fine here down on the south coast. So, like I say, I had a weekend off. We'll talk about that in a minute. As much of a weekend as you can have off by then coming home from everything you've done and then watching hockey again. But yeah, we'll touch on that in a bit. Plenty of news to go through, of course. The last undefeated record in the NHL has finally fallen. The top of the National looks really tight. It's getting tight as well for all of the playoff positionings and playoff spots. Revenge in South 1, wallopings in North 1. And South 2 had like 3 games all weekend, which was quite strange. But either way, before we kick on too much with the news, we need to do, of course, a little bit of housekeeping. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. And of course, new articles coming out. I didn't leave you guys hanging for too long, and I promise you there'd be a new Hockey Stories piece, and there was. The latest piece on the website, of course, our brand new Hockey Stories interview. Remember the North, the state of Scottish ice hockey. A massive thanks to Scottish Ice Hockey's head of hockey operations. I keep forgetting his full job title, but either way, also assistant coach of the Solway Sharks, Jamie Thompson, for hopping on and having a chat with me about that. Really fascinating look through the state of things up in Scotland, because of course we focus on the NIHL. There is only one Scottish team in the NIHL, and there's only two women's teams in the WNIHL as well. So the ability to go and have a look at what's happening north of the border, and that very quiet revolution that in the background, while everyone's been focusing on the EIHA and its transition to England ice hockey, our friends in the north have been doing some work themselves, and there's a lot going on. The rise of the quality of the SNL has been massive as well. We've seen the impact of some of those young players. Of course, touched on Bailey Thompson, of course, who is Jamie's son, and makes me feel very old and very depressed, because I was nowhere near as good at anything as him at 16, apart from being a sarcastic little sod. But either way as well, the other thing, apart from hockey stories, are long form pieces that are both written, audio, visual, where you can go in depth into stuff around hockey. You've got our Banners on the Road series, long form, in depth looks at every game that I've gone to. I had last weekend off, and I'll tell you what, I kind of really appreciate the fact that I took a weekend away just to kind of do some different things. Aside from the fact being a Bournemouth fan, I was at Bournemouth versus Forest. So my son has been to 2 competitive AFC Bournemouth games. They have scored 5 goals both times he's gone. He thinks all we do is batter teams week in, week out. He might be in for a bit of a shock when I tell him that when we play Liverpool this weekend. But either way, great afternoon out with my boy. And then on Sunday, took the wife and me and the boy took the wife to the F1 exhibition up in London. Had a really, really good time. So pretty much the only hockey I watched all weekend was Nottingham versus Deeside. We'll get to that, if you don't know the score from that one, in a bit when we go into Division 1. But when you want to look on the website, Banners on the Road, in-depth look at every game I've gone to. And this weekend, well, for my sins, we're going back to Yeehaw country. We will be back at the Link Centre for Country Night Mark II down at the Link Centre for the Swindon Wildcats and the Berkshire Bees. Looking forward to catching up with folk there. Should be really interesting. And of course, Vanya Antonov's first outing against his old paymasters. That should be fun. But either way, plenty of stuff, including the back catalogue of the LBOTW podcast and our free to download tabletop ice hockey game, Dice Hockey, available for you to check out over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. The second thing, of course, is we are live Wednesday night, every Wednesday night through the British hockey season, here on YouTube, the BOTW What's Current stream, the first, best and only live show that goes through all 5 divisions. We go from Leeds to Lee Valley and beyond to check out everything that's happened in the NIHL. And of course, the great thing about it is if you're on catch up, if you're at the beginning, you heard the secret phrase, you know what you need to put in the comments. But we are live every week. And of course, that means you get to check out the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to throw in as we talk our way through the brilliance of British ice hockey. But of course, if you are sticking stuff in the chat, please remember the golden rule, DBAD, don't be a dick, be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we are going to have a jolly good time. Now, if you are new, one thing we do in the chat at the beginning is we always do our warm-up question, and we have had some absolute corkers because in celebrating GB under-18 women, of course, they ran the table in Riga. Gold for GB's under-18 women in Latvia, beating the hosts 3-2. Lily Endicott with quite literally the golden goal with about 7 and a bit minutes left to play in that game. And they just, a dominant performance across the weekend from Great Britain, promoted to Division 1 from Division 2, which is awesome. So we asked, what is your hockey golden moment? So we've got plenty of awesome ones here to check out, which we'll quickly have a squiz through. Bob Mitchell-King, good evening, Bob. Trust the boys and are well. He has GB8 under U18s winning gold in Estonia in 2018. Andrew Day, of course, the prolific, the scoreboard supremo himself. Probably seeing Sweden win gold at the World Championships in Riga in 2006. Then meeting most of the team back at the hotel, including Henrik Zetterberg, Michael Nylander, etc. But more recently, Queen Bees doing the league and playoff double. And of course, I was there with you to see the Queen Bees win the league. That was pretty awesome. Ben Hyde, 0 pucks given, of course. Your one-stop shop for all things South One. If you want South One in depth, Ben is the place to go. Recent one commentating on the Chieftains winning the playoffs at Ali Pally. I figured that would probably be in there. Dave, who's a Raiders fan, the Raiders making commentary in Peterborough in 2013. That was a massive night, of course. Got a few other folk coming in. Jamie, 2017 EPL Cup final. No better feeling than beating the Phantoms in the final at home. I want to say, was that an Adam Carr penalty shot to win that one. I seem to remember it was Adam Carr on the penalty shot, and then immediately Kev comes in. He's a Peterborough fan. Phantoms winning the playoffs last season. The only thing I feel bad about for Peterborough winning that one, aside from any of the controversy of the semi-final that people is that you've got me commentating on that for eternity. Every time you watch that back, it's me. John Akers, Invicta winning South One Cup a couple of seasons ago. Most recent one for me where they beat Chelmsford in the final, of course. That was always a big one for Invicta to get one over on the Chieftains. Kaidi, Oxford fan, Oxford beating Streatham. Kaidi, of course, joining the Oxford City Stars as a fan in a bit of a darker period for the City Stars in terms of success, but you take success where you find it. And then that's all we've got for there. So if you're watching, keep tracking your bits and pieces in. Stick them in the comments as well what your golden hockey moment is so far. Andrew is stuck in the Elite League score for tonight. Coventry and Guildford going head-to-head at the Sky Dome. Currently 1-1. Jack Hopkins on the board for the hosts and Lewis Hook on scoring for the Guildford Flames. 1-1 at the end of the first at the Sky Dome. Getting into the national bits and pieces, of course, we've had a pretty impressive re-signing and another 2 years at home for Owen Bruton. He has signed on for another 2 campaigns with the Hull Seahawks. Currently out injured, of course. He was injured in the GB Under-20 campaign, so he's currently off the ice at the moment. We wish him a speedy recovery, of course, but a really, really impressive young player. Started to really grow into his role with Hull as well. I remember very clearly in the Seahawks' first season him being in a face cage down in Basingstoke, standing on the bench with Matty Davies and him telling me just how good this young lad was and how he had no place playing in he was so talented, he didn't need to be in Div 2 or Div 1. He was coming straight into the National, and that's where he should be. And I think Owen Bruton has proved quite convincingly that that was a good choice on Matty's part. And obviously, he's still very young, and another 2 years, he's only just going to season and kind of get better. You'd hope maybe an Elite League team might take a look at might have a look at Impact Manchester. Of course, an option. We know that Manchester and Hull have had some dealings. Johnny Cornell is a part of some of those discussions. Will he return to Manchester? Will he come back to Hull? That all kind of remains to be seen on that front. But so big bit of news for Hull, getting one of their up and coming talented youngsters to commit to another 2 seasons with the Seahawks, who of course fourth horse or not, they can certainly clip clop along for another 2 years with Owen Bruton, which is fantastic. The thing I will say, of course, the fantastic bits and pieces that we've seen from EIH's Pride Week. Of course, we have sort of 2 weekends of it, so everybody gets a chance. The Elite League have had their Pride Week as well, albeit Cardiff sit outside of that. Cardiff Devils do their Pride celebrations to kind of time with when the city of Cardiff does that. As it is gone, I will say it now, as I said it last week, hockey is your space. I do not care about your gender identity, your sexuality, how you choose to express yourself. This sport is your space, and that is the same whether it is today, during Pride Week, or any other day. You do you, look after you, solidarity to you, wherever you are, however you express yourself, whatever end of the Kinsey scale you want to find yourself on. Keep rocking and rolling. It's tough out there, so let's pick each other up and push each other on and look after each other rather than some of the stuff we're seeing in certain corners of the world right now, which is a little bit worrying. Other bits of news that we have, of course, Mike Clancy stepping down as the coach of GB Women, also coach of the Deeside Dragons. So interesting there from GB to move on from him following the last gasp defeat in Olympic qualification. Obviously, news that we do need to touch on. Of course, given the fact that Sean Alderson has just led GB's women to U18 women to a gold medal, you'd have to think he's probably potentially going to be in discussions there. But there's plenty of good women's team coaches and female coaches across Britain who can step in and do that job for the women's national team. Watch this space. We will, of course, touch on that as we go. Like I say, for some reason, I can slightly hear myself, so I'm just going to click some buttons there, but it doesn't appear to be too much of an issue. I just don't know why I can hear myself. It's very, very odd. Either way, had a brilliant evening on Saturday being myself, everyone accepting issues despite my early nerves. Brilliant. That's what we like to hear, Jamie. You do you, my good man. Hello to Chris Beale. down in South London. A man who's probably slightly happier this week than he was last week. Chris, of course, will be getting the highlights out for Streatham versus Chelmsford before too long. I can only imagine how painful it was to do the week before. But fair play for doing that anyway. Excuse me. There we go. That's better. I'm just checking if I can hear myself, because no, it's not coming out there. That's fine. Awesome. But yeah, don't know what it is. Might just be my end, but we'll figure that bit out as we go along. Either way, 8:15. Let us go and have a quick squiz at the National Division as I click a few buttons. We swap, and we are there. There we go. I'll just pull out some stuff and we will get rocking and rolling, because of course it's been Friday Night Lights recently. It is Friday Night Lights down in Berkshire at the basement of the table as the Bees and the Pitbulls went head to head, and with two sides very, very close to each other, they managed to put on a heck of a game. 4-4 after regulation. Wilstead, Josh Smith, Josh Martin, and Dom Gabai for the Bees. Tanner Butler with a wraparound goal as well for added extra effect, as well as Bailey Harewood, Ewan Hill, and Reece Cochrane. Wilstead getting a Gordie Howe hat-trick in this game, so, you know, everybody... actually, no, he didn't, because he didn't get an assist, did he? He's not. I thought he had an assist. Was it Hill who... No, it's Ewan Hill. Silly me. Ewan Hill got a Gordie Howe hat-trick because he fought Wilstead. But either way, this one goes all the way to the shootout, and the man with ice in his veins, supposedly, Ralph Sasenis, even giving the little Cole Palmer chilly celebration at the end of it, means the Bees, well, they actually beat one of the teams around them. Their record against the teams around them in the league has been pretty shocking also at times this season, but they do get the extra point out of the Bristol Pitbulls last Friday night. That then takes us into Saturday, and of course all eyes towards the top of the table, big games against some tough opposition, but the Knights, they do the business at home on Saturday against the Peterborough Phantoms. 6-4 the final score. The Knights having scored all 6 of their goals before by the 35-minute mark, and it was 6-1 up heading into the third period, and then Peterborough decided to wake up on the power play with a few moments to go, but this is the advantage, of course, of when other teams get themselves into penalty trouble. Matt Bissonette, a hat-trick from Kieran Brown, Matt Barron and Finn Braden for the Knights, Luke Ferrara, and then that burst at the end, Nathan Salem, Austin Mitchell-King and Cam Huff with the goals for Peterborough, but ultimately the 2 points stay at the Castle. So what of MK? Well, they had an even more convincing win than Leeds did, putting their playoff... their cup semi-final victors, Romford, to the sword. Bad run of form for the Raiders at the moment, as you can see, coming into this game with a big bunch of red right across the screen, and MK compounding the misery. 7-3 win for the Lightning in this one. 2 from Jordan Cowney, a hat-trick from Max Stewart, Martin Sustis and Sean Norris on the board for Tim Wallace's side. Sean Miller, Jake Sylvester and Reed Morrison on the board for the Raiders, with George Norcliffe now full-time back in the lineup, getting himself an assist for his first point since his permanent return. So we saw what happened to Leeds, we saw what happened to MK, and then what of the big game between the third and the fourth horse, as it were, and well, it's pretty... as you can see, a lot happened, all things considered, but either way, it is Hull who take the extra point as teams, well, 5-5 at the end of regulation, 5-5 at the end of overtime, and it is Hull who steal the extra point in the shootout. Swindon proving again that they definitely can score, but Hull, you don't want to go into a run and gun battle with the Hull Seahawks. That's always a bit of a bad idea, and a bit of a banner night as well for Declan Balmer returning to a team that he played against. 2 goals for him, 2 goals for Emil Svek. 2 goals for him, 2 goals for Emil Svek, and 1 for Bobby Chamberlain in regulation. Jake Bricknell with a hat-trick for the Cats, as well as goals from Tomasz Malazinski and Ed Bradley. Emil Svek, in the end, getting the shootout winner, which gives the Seahawks the extra point. Elsewhere on Saturday then, a big win for the Sharks in their race to qualify for the playoffs for the first time, defeating the Bees by 4-1 at the Dumfries Ice Bowl. Nolan Gardner, John Dunbar, Callum Boyd, and a first National League goal for Bailey Thompson. He gets his first Sharks senior goal in the second period. You can see the excitement on the faces of everybody on the ice. John Dunbar looked like he's about to leap out of his skates for that one. Congratulations to Bailey on his first goal and 2 points for the Sharks. The Bees' lone goal of the game coming early in the second period from Dom Gabai. And then the last game on Saturday went all the way into extras as well. But the extra point goes to the Sheffield Steel Dogs as the Tigers drop points again as they try to catch up with the Sharks. Finn Howells, and 2 goals from Eric Henderson getting the Tigers into a position. But then is a late goal from Sam Tremblay after goals from Charlie Thompson, finally back from injury, and 1 from Jonathan Phillips, making it 3-3 at the end of regulation. But then Tremblay again from Björkley Nerdstrom and the player coach Ben Morgan gives the Dogs the extra point on Saturday night. Into Sunday and a 4-point weekend for the Wildcats, massive in their title charge as they comfortably put the Steel Dogs back into their doghouse at the Puppy Pound at Ice Sheffield. When you consider the last time these two sides played up at Ice Sheffield, it was that horrible game where the Dogs nicked the result inside the last few seconds against the Cats, who in regulation they were left to go home with nothing at all. But the Swindon this time, it's cool, it's calm, and it's composed. The captain Sam Bullas, as well as goals from Tyler Plews, Ed Bradley and Jake Bricknell, because who else? The lone goal for the Dogs in this one coming from Jonathan Phillips. Sunday then for Bristol, they obviously got a point on Friday night. They couldn't get anything out of the MK Lightning as the Lightning keep up their title charge with a 6-2 victory over Bristol. Mason Lipsey with both goals for the hosts. Goals for the Lightning coming from Tim Wallace, Carter Hamill, Martin Susters, Tom Rutkiss, Sean Norris and Jordan Spadafor getting on the board rarely. I know MK fans have complained a bit and say we need more out of our imports. Spadafor's a defensive defenseman, so I've said that they maybe are worrying a little bit too much about that given the quality of their Brit scoring. But either way, 6 goals past a team that they should comfortably be beating if they're wanting to make a title charge. Definitely a good night all round for the folk from the Thunderdome. Romford, though, back to winning ways, coming into this game off the back of a string of defeats. They get past the Tigers in regulation again. Another dent to the Tigers' playoff hopes as they go down at the Sapphire. 2 goals from Jake Sylvester, as well as goals from TJ Anderson, Sean Miller, Sean Barry and Andrew Schufelt. The Tigers' goals coming from David Thompson, Harry Ferguson and 2 from Scott McKenzie, but ultimately a 1-point weekend for the Tigers. Bad news, of course, given Solway had 2 from Saturday night, albeit it was only 2 on the weekend. Hull get himself a 4-point weekend by battering the Sharks on the Humber side. Bobby Chamberlain doing the damage early on. It was 3-0, pretty sharpish in this one. 3-1 at the end of the first before the Seahawks pulled away. Bobby Chamberlain with 2, Johnny Corneal, Emil Svek, and then 2 from Lee Bonner for the Seahawks. John Dunbar with the lone goal for the Sharks. And then the Knights, well, they slip up, and the Peterborough Phantoms get themselves into a position, where, having lost to Leeds the night before, they turn around and do the business themselves at home. It is Cam Huff ultimately with the game-winning goal early in the third period, along with goals from Nathan Salem, Austin Mitchell-King and Luke Ferrara. The Knights' goals coming from Mac Howlett, Bo Neely and Ollie Endicott. The game obviously very tightly poisoned. The Knights had time but couldn't find a way past Hayden Levine at the death, meaning they slip up again and let Milton Keynes and Swindon back in the door. When we look at the National Division table, then it stands as it does. The MK Lightning, top of the table, 58 points from 38 games, and then Swindon and Leeds both on 57, but crucially the Knights and the Lightning now level on games played. Swindon have played a game more, but Swindon on 57, Leeds on 57, then that 9-point gap brings in Hull in 4th place. They are going to need something quite mathematically quite large to get back into that one. Sorry, Hull. I think the 4th horse has been put out to pasture on that front. Peterborough then in 5th place. They're only 3 points behind Hull on 45, followed by Sheffield on 44, Romford on 37 and Solway on 34 make up the playoff spots at the moment. The gap between Solway and Telford now 5 points. They're on 29. Bristol have played a game more than the Tigers, but they're only 1 point back on 28. The Bees, unfortunately, quite a way away. 7 points back of 10th place. 21 from 37 for the Bees. Which then leads us into the fixtures this weekend. We have more Friday Night Lights, and it's back in Yorkshire. The Sheffield Steel Dogs and the Leeds Knights will go to battle at Ice Sheffield, 7:30 p.m. this Friday night. If you're in the area, make sure you get yourself down for the only show in town. And then into Saturday, plenty of interesting fixtures, including where I will be, of course, right there at the bottom. Swindon versus the Berkshire Bees. I'll be at the Links Centre on Saturday. If you see me, do come say hello. Elsewhere, and a really interesting one, 10th hosts 9th. Bristol hosting Telford could be massive in the potential playoff charge for either side. MK versus Solway, Peterborough versus Romford, and the Sheffield Steel Dogs take on the Hull Seahawks in another battle for Yorkshire pride. On Sunday, then, the Bees play host to the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Hull take on MK. That could be really interesting in the title race if Hull manage to spring a surprise there. Huge game at the Castle. Title-winning potential for either side if they win in regulation here. Leeds versus Swindon. That one is a massive edition of the Nell Classico. Romford take on Solway. And the Telford Tigers host the Peterborough Phantoms on a Sunday in Shropshire. Back at home on a Sunday, where they should be. Click buttons. Click buttons. There we go. League high 2,561 in MK on Saturday to see the Lightning power play finally awaking. There we go. That's pretty decent if nothing else. I'm glad you're happy on that one. That's the National Division, folks. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. What are we saying given everything that happened last weekend in the National? As I'm going to grab a drink. What do we think? Any big things there? That three-way title race now as it is. I'm sorry, Hull fans. I'm really sorry. But I don't think... I think it's just a step too far now. They require too much for it to happen. I think it's just a little bit out of reach. So, yeah. I still think Leeds potentially nick this. I've said that Leeds are going to steal it on the last day. I will stick by that for the minute. But yeah, I think the that Leeds Swindon game on Sunday is huge for the division. I don't know what constitutes a bad result for both teams there. Ideally, I think you're wanting to win in regulation. If Leeds lose in regulation to Swindon here, that is massive for all concerned, because it kind of puts, aside from the fact it puts MK on notice that Swindon are coming up behind them as well. MK have got to get results as well. It's not, we've seen MK have occasionally struggled on the road. Sometimes they have dropped games they definitely shouldn't have. They shouldn't have dropped. They'll be kicking themselves if MK lose the title by a point, and they will probably look to that game in Slough against the Bees and that they lost and think to themselves, we shot ourselves in the foot here and we've lost the title because of it. So Sunday starts to run where we will have a clearer picture of who wins the league. Yeah, I'd probably agree on that one actually, Jamie. I know you and I don't always agree on some of the analysis, but I think we are, even though we're at that kind of point where most teams are kind of 14, 15, 16 games out, where we are, the end game really starts now. Obviously people talk about, Christmas has passed and the run-in. January's been kind of sort of sifting out a few bits and pieces. Hull have got to keep looking over their shoulder because they don't want fourth nicked off of them by Peterborough, who have, flipped the Slava switch and woken up and gotten themselves back into things. So that's that's always a worry for people, particularly around playoff time as well, when Peterborough are waking up and deciding they want to do well. But yeah, lots to be said and lots to kind of be thought about there. We're also in that part of seeing where a few sort of signings and bits and pieces will start eking their way out too, which is always interesting to see. I see, we've had Ed Bradley re-sign for a couple of years, Owen Bruton's re-signed for a couple of years, and I think as well we're going to start seeing a few more of these guys signing multi-year deals in the National Division now that it is 5 years in, established itself as kind of an entity. People can kind of see the direction it's wanting to go. So I think we're gonna see a lot more of these sort of younger-ish guys doing signing on multi-years for bits and pieces, especially considering the 2 weeks after this MK have double headers versus Leeds and Swindon. Yeah, I mean, the credit to Aaron Nell, because if you don't know, it's Aaron Nell who helps do a lot of the scheduling. He's done this well. He's done this one very, very well, very, very well indeed. As folk are sticking stuff in the chat about how they're feeling, their various their various feelings and bits and pieces. There are of course a couple of little bits of news, of signing news outside of the National, which I'm just gonna quickly pull up in my notes so I can check those bits and pieces. Because news out of D-side in that they have signed, in that Dalton Thompson, having recently been in Canada, he's returned to Britain and he has signed on to do two-way duty between the Dragons and the D-side Ducks in North 2. What we do have, of course, is that there was a departure out of D-side. He says, quickly trying again to flip through his notes, because there was a departing defenseman. Not ideal, really, in some ways for the Dragons, because they are defensively not great at the moment. But Ollie Howes, who spent the last season and a half in D-side, he has departed for the Solihull Barons. The Barons kind of loading up a little bit now, so especially from a scoring perspective. Because you think Howell's quite fast, moves the puck quite well. Zach Yokoyama added to that mix as well, alongside Nicholas Otterson, who scores for fun in North 1, which should be so that'll be a really, really interesting one as well. Jacob Brammer has left the Hull Jets. He's gone back to Sheffield. He's on a two-way deal that sees him combine Steel Dogs and Scimitars duty, which is big for the Scimitars as well. Traditionally been one of those lower end sides, and in fact they travelled up to Billingham last weekend with only 11 skaters and 2 goalies. So getting some of these other younger guys, more talented prospects, you need maybe that little bit of extra seasoning before they hit the Steel Dogs. Brammer's been pretty impressive for Hull at times this year, so him going back into the Sheffield fold is big news for them. Less movement in the south at the moment, especially with the signing deadline being 2 days away. Of course, that is effectively, for folk unaware, there isn't so much transfer windows. There's just that kind of signing deadline, at which point you will not have played enough games to make the playoffs. So a team can sign somebody past Friday, but they will not be eligible for post-season play if they do. We're going to get into the Sheffield talk. Graham, we can get into the Sheffield talk if you want. It's obviously a new day, a very long day in Sheffield, of course, with the Steelers buying the Steel Dogs and this new influx of funding into the Scimitars as well. There's obviously a lot going on there. We've seen the change in the Steel Dogs, of course. Lots of two ways of guys moving up and down between the NIHL National and the Elite League. It's obviously worked very well for Finn Ulrich. Van Björkli Nordstrom's had lots of time up there as well. The netminders, of course, have rotated in and out for the Steelers too. Had opportunities to play in, or at least be on the bench in CHL games, in big Elite League games against big teams too. And so what Sheffield said they were going to do, they are kind of doing. So we can't, they said this is what they were going to do, and kind of won in their first full season of doing it. They're doing it as well. What this means when they turned around and said that they've really kind of instituted this pathway to bring the Scimitars into that fold, not the Titans, I noticed, but the Scimitars as well, mean that there is a influx of investment into NHL 1, into the Scimitar system. What that's going to mean, because obviously a few guys have rocked up in Sheffield as well. Matty Bloor has joined on a two-way deal with the Telford Tigers, and they're tinkering with that roster. Sheffield probably still feel like in their heads that if they get the right guys in, that the playoffs aren't too far away, particularly if they can get a good run together of regulation wins, 3 points after 3 points after 3 points. You win 4 games back-to-back in regulation, that's 12 points on the board. That's massive at that level, especially given that the 8th, 9th and 10th in North 1, as we'll look at in a minute, really, really close together. But the Steelers and the Steel Dogs are kind of wanting the Scimitars to be that kind of that other step in their developmental pathway. It's great for Sheffield. I think probably, of course, the criticism a lot of people would have with the Sheffield system is that they're not interested in the bigger picture of British hockey. They're interested in Sheffield and making Sheffield better, where they could appreciate the place that they have, that being the top of the mountain is great, but if you blow out the mountain beneath you, you're still on top of nothing. And I think that's probably the criticism some people would have wider. The argument there is, well, that's up to other places to get better. Also true, but two things can both be true at the same time, and there's no point being the best of two. There's an East Germany joke I can make in there if you want to go back and read that piece on Banners on the Wall as well. But lots to kind of mill over, and obviously from Graham, probably causing a little bit of perturbation of some folk in North 1. And if before we get into North 1 and 2, the other place to find me this week, I was on Starcast, the Billingham Stars podcast with Craig Simpson, with Cara Hunter and Johnny Langstaff. Do go check that out. Yes, it's a North One Focus podcast, and but we do touch on the national, we touch on North One, we touch on South One, we touch on my journey through British hockey, how I've ended up doing some of the weird things I've done as well. It's a really good podcast. It's put together really well, so go check that out too. Yes, you've got to the bit I was going to say, Jamie, I was going to do, because I realised we've got a little bit more time. I was going to leave it to the end, but we'll do it now just because I've talked so fast that I think we've got to the point we can do it now. Playoff tickets, of course, have been released, not just for the Steel City Showdown, more on that, of course, in a couple of weeks, but the prices have been released for the Coventry NHL National Division Playoff weekend. So the first thing we'll do is, of course, we'll talk about the prices in a minute, because, of course, tickets are going to start going on sale for clubs between the 4th and the 7th of February. So on Tuesday the 4th of February, 10 a.m, Solway Sharks, who've been given Block 1, and the Romford Raiders, who have Block 14, they go on sale at 10 a.m. And then at 2 p.m. on the 4th, Hull Seahawks are in Block 4, and the Sheffield Steeldogs in Block 15 get their little window. Wednesday the 5th at 10 a.m, the Telford Tigers are in Block 5, and the Bristol Pitbulls in Block 6. And then at 2 p.m, Blocks 11 and 12 for the Swindon Wildcats, Block 13 for the Berkshire Bees. Thursday the 6th, 10 a.m, Peterborough Phantoms in Block 9, and the Basingstoke Bison get a block again in Block 10, which is nice to be remembered, as the team lurk just out beyond the mist. And then 2 p.m. on Thursday the 6th is the Leeds Knights by themselves. They get Blocks 7 and 8. And then, and I still think this is a really, really good idea, last to go on Friday the 7th at 10 a.m. is the MK Lightning. They've got Blocks 2 and 3. MK's traditional blocks at Coventry, it should be said, although shunted along ever so slightly. They usually did have 1 and 2, but they've generally had Block 2, one of the bigger blocks at the Skydome. And then 2 p.m, all standing tickets go on sale. Leaving MK till last, I think, is a really, really good idea, because it will stop MK fans moaning, because at least to a point, because they can then kind of just buy what's left at that point, rather than worrying too much about other bits and pieces. The big talking point, though, has been the pricing for the weekend. He says, just quickly getting up the price of tickets. Where's it gone? I'm trying to find. There we are. Scrolling through too many bits and pieces. So what we have, and I'll read this out because this is the bit on the England Ice Hockey website. £75 for adults, £58 for senior citizens, £40 for children, so no student discount again, which I'm never a massive fan of. All tickets will incur a 12% venue-applied booking fee. Tickets can be purchased online, by phone or in person at the Coventry Skydome box office when they're released for sale. Online, a link will be provided by your club prior to tickets going on sale. All online ticket purchasers must have an up-to-date ICE account prior to purchasing tickets. And then there's the details there. You can get all those details. All the clubs have them. All of the it's on the England Ice Hockey website as well. The price is an interesting one, and there's two things. Firstly, 12% ticket fee is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. There is no other way to say that. There is zero justification for a 12% ticket fee. That's beyond Ticketmaster levels worth of nonsense. And I get that in the past, Planet Ice have had to spend money to sort out extra service because things have crashed and people have complained. There is no justification for a £12 service charge. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And I will say that now, and I know this will get back to Planet Ice. It's wrong. Shouldn't do it. There is no reason to be charging a service fee of that point. Make 5%. I could probably live with 5% if you really needed to do it, and put it in the price. Don't say this is the price and then we're adding this on top. Don't make people do math. You do the adding up and tell people what the price is. Something you go to America and the price says one thing and then you get stung by the tax at the till. I ain't here doing mental arithmetic. If you want me to buy your thing, give me the price so I can buy your thing. We'll do it that way. But the pricing, considering the fact that you get, considering the price for the Steel City Showdown, people will say that the price uplift is high. It's a bit high. I find that quite hard in that respect. I feel that the quality of hockey will be very good. Now let's face it, commentary weekend sells out. It does really well, and the hockey is generally of a good of a standard, or at least where you get excitement. Because let's face it, irrespective of any of the controversy of the second semi-final, it was an exciting weekend. We got 4 games, all with meaning, that really did something, and the and you know that puts it above the Elite League in terms of the value for money for me. 75 over 4 for the experience and for the occasion. People will rectify their heads to it. I get why people think it's too high, especially when given the fact the Steel City Showdown the week before is the better part of 20 quid less for 6 games, where you will get effectively 6 playoff finals. You also have the odd issue, of course, of that 4th game, that League Championship Division 1 game, where you will have had not just North 1 and South 1 playoff champions given the weekend before, but also a National Division 1 playoff champion. And that not unreasonably, I think, will cause a little bit of head scratching for people. The thing, of course, is that, and this is something I talked about in the BOTW 1000th article, Grand Ideas, people put more credo on the league title in British ice hockey because of our shortened playoff format. You can effectively, and especially as well, given that there are no groups, no group round robin stages in the Division 1 and Division 2 playoffs. It's quarterfinals into semi-finals, into the finals weekend. So it's 2 legs. You can effectively get away with winning 2 games, because you could lose 1 leg of your semi-final and still qualify. You could get to a national finals weekend by winning twice. And I think that's quite hard to sort of rectify your head around, whereas at least for some people, but that's the nature of our format, right? We accept that is how things work here, but you have this game at commentary that is the league title champions from both leagues. So you could have somebody win the playoffs and somebody else win the league, and they get to go to Coventry. That is what that is. On that front, that's the system we've all signed up for, and that's kind of what we get. So we do get that extra game on the Sunday, which is one of my favourite games of the year. I think it's really good. I think it's important as well that lower level hockey gets that showcase to do that at the National Division weekend, because I just think it's important for people to see different hockey. I think it's really important for people to not be so in their bubble that they don't look at the stuff that comes out beyond that. And I think that's where that game serves really, really well. And of course, with the Steel City Showdown, there will be your opportunity. In a couple of weeks, you can win tickets. You win 2 adult tickets for that entire weekend. Of course, it's happening in a couple of places. A few places have been given tickets to give away. We will, here at BOTW, be running a raffle, so you can get those tickets. Money's going to go to Parkinson's UK, because of my dad. And the winner will get 2 adult weekend passes to the Steel City Showdown, courtesy of England Ice Hockey, who have been kind enough to give me those to give away, which is pretty awesome. That £12 fee is robbery. It doesn't get called out. Often enough. It is hard. It is a very, very hard. I think it's a very, very hard one to justify, and I really wish they would explain why. I think this is you don't have to agree with it at all, but I think ultimately, if you're going to do that, you need to say why you're doing something. Peterborough, for all of the fact that they have higher prices than Bits and Pieces, Slava Kulikov and the ownership team kind of came out and said, we charge this because of this. This is our reason to do that. And I think and I can live with that. You know, you can then take your choice. You're then making an informed decision, right? If you don't want to pay £17 to go watch the Peterborough Phantoms, you don't have to. But they are at least telling you why it's 17 quid. Why is the fee 12%? I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to ask. And the question will be there, and you see Kev's put it in the chat, and Joe's given exactly the answer. Do we think they'll struggle to sell tickets at that price? And Joe Scuts, of course, NHL Stats, all hail. No, they'll sell them all anyway. There's always people with FOMO. People will be worried about missing out. And you know what? It's a good weekend, and a lot of people enjoy it, and I generally enjoy it as well. I've already spoken to my friends and secured my place in their spare room. Albeit I'll be on a busman's holiday again. The MK fans will clean up the remainder by the sounds of it. John, as somebody who watches South One, you have clearly been paying attention to the chat and bits and pieces on this show long enough. Well done, sir. You have you've levelled up on that one. PI doesn't need ice hockey. Ice hockey needs PI. Dave, that might be one of the best things we've had in chat. I don't know whether that's your quote or whether that's somebody else saying it, but it's very true. What is ice hockey without the ice? And if Planet Ice, Planet Ice don't Planet Ice effectively can find other ways to make money with their venues, of course, as they sort of blanketly threatened to do during the whole Steel Dogs malarkey, and sell them anyway when they don't make it. That is a bold prediction, Kev. Although, be it, of course, they didn't make it last year, so that was always a fun one. But credit as well, MK still turned up in numbers, still had their big weekend out. Tried to make the weekend a little bit too much about themselves from the chanting rather than getting on board and cheering for the folk who were actually there. But if you're MK, I think MK probably Leeds, who they don't like, Peterborough, who they definitely don't like, Swindon, who I'm not sure whether they like or not, and Telford, I don't think they bothered about. So who are they going to cheer for, I suppose? And the answer was probably Streatham. Streatham is who they cheered for. So PI said it during the "Let the Dogs Play" thing. They did, didn't they? Maybe I can't remember if they said those exact words, but it's sort of a very tacit acceptance kind of thing, isn't it? Excuse me. I did notice as well, Andrew's put it in the chat there, Blaze 2-1 up on the Flames, Nick Seitz with the power play goal for the Coventry Blaze. Coventry, of course, who on the 16th of February will be doing their memorial game to former assistant coach Dale Keane. Fantastic bit. Fantastic touch from the Blaze as well, because of Dale, originally from Dumfries, very, very well loved in that part of the world where he was from. They're using the official Solway Sharks tartan on those replica jerseys. We love playing the villain in your head. MK are in nobody's head, Jamie. I think this is the thing. MK aren't panto villains. MK are to a lot of the league kind of what Joey Barton was to a lot of people when he played football, in the sense that some people love them, but some people don't like the antics, and that's kind of the thing. MK are a really, really fascinating club, and I'd love to interview Tim Wallace, and I'd love to interview ownership, but every time I have asked, they just don't get back to me. So fair enough on that front. But I don't think to say MK are in people's heads, I think would be optimistic. I think it's probably that best way of doing things. Anyway, we have done the National, so it's time, of course, and Joe, of course, has popped into the chat, thanks to the box score bits and pieces over at NHLstats.wordpress.com. It is time to look at Division 1 and Division 2, which we will do if I'd press the right button. There we go. We'll have a quick look then. We'll start as we usually do. In North 1 from this past Saturday. And well, the Sheffield Schimmers might be adding a bunch of new players, but they are not. They weren't adding points on Saturday, losing 4-2 at home to the Whitley Warriors. The Warriors it was a bit of a manic last 10 minutes, all things considered, but the Warriors generally in control for most of it. 3-0 up at 50 minutes and 1 second, thanks to 2 goals from Callum Queenan and 1 from Ross Douglas. 4-0 thanks to Phil Edgar, and then Sheffield decided to just make it interesting at the end. Brandon Chard and George Crawshaw with 2 late goals for the Scimitars. Ultimately, too little, too late from the Sheffield side. Whitley out shooting Sheffield by 44-18 on the night. A big game in terms of a potential playoff positioning, but one that the Solihull Barons steal in overtime. And look at that overtime winning goal. Zach Yokoyama from Nicholas Otterson. You could have written that one, couldn't you? Otterson of getting the first goal of the game for the Barons. Hull 2-1 up in this one then, thanks to Lewis Rogers and Harrison Booth. Jacob Race equalising and Charlie Webb putting the Barons ahead before a late equaliser from Harrison Booth took it to the extras, where Yokoyama, who also got the only penalty of the night, was the hero for the Midlands side at Hobbs Moat Road. As you see there, another lopsided shot count, 60-17. 17 shots on Ben Lee. Not sure what Hull happened to Hull's shooting gloves on that particular one. Not quite so close over on Merseyside as the Blackburn Hawks win by 6 goals to 2 against Widnes, and Blackburn were 5-0 to the good before Widnes even got anywhere close to on the board. A natural hat-trick from Adam Barnes in just over half an hour. Peter Walsiak and Jacob Lutwich for the Hawks there, before Dan Hyde and Bez Hughes got themselves on the board. Bez Hughes' first goal of the season there, before Barnes' fourth of the night, making it 6-2 with a few minutes to play. Whitley did not get themselves a 6-point weekend on this occasion because Dale and Solihull decided to play Banners on the Walls' favourite game. Why defend when you can not defend? 9-5 at Hillheads to the Barons in this one. A pretty crazy game, as you can see. Plenty as well of penalties thrown around too. A fight in the second, a couple of fights in the second period there, as Sean O'Neill and Jordan Jolly go toe-to-toe with Sean Kippen and Jordan Barnes. There's a really, really good video from it, though. I think it was taken from the bench of one of the fights there. We'll just have a quick look at the goal scoring. A hat-trick for Alex White, 4 goals for Nicholas Otterson and 2 for Zach Yokoyama. I don't want to say that, you don't want to... A lot of offence comes through very, very few guys at Solihull, but yeah... Another mad night for Otterson, who's just an absolute ridiculous machine as he looks to try and chase down Ian Brown in terms of points. Carl Ross, Phil Edgar, Ross Douglas, and Harry Harley and Ethan and Reed with the goals for the Warriors there. And then the champs, as I said earlier, they went and gave the Scimitars a bit of a kicking. The Scimitars selling up with 11 skaters for this one, and very handily put to the sword by the Billingham Stars. Ian Brown, as you can see there, 49 goals. My word. In a game with only 6 minutes worth of penalties. Joe Matthewman with the lone goal for the Scimitars. 2 goals for Brown, 2 for Rolands Grittans, Callum Wilkinson with 1, James Moss with 1, and a hat-trick for the captain, Michael Elder, on a night where Chris Sykes as well had another 4 points for the Stars. They end up putting 76 shots on the Scimitars to their 12 the other way. Blackburn, though, with a 6-point weekend to keep the pressure on the Stars above, albeit the Stars still in a very commanding position. But they win the Lancashire-Yorkshire derby against the Leeds Knights by a score of 6-3. More goals for Adam Barnes, more for Jacob Lutwich. Barnes now up to 30 on the year. Lutwich with a hat-trick now up to 33. So yeah, a hat-trick for Lutwich, 2 for Dara Spafford and 1 for Adam Barnes. The Knights goals, 2 from Owen Dell and 1 from Fritz Heinzler. And then there was the one game of the weekend I actually watched beginning to end, because with all my busyness, like I say, no hockey in the rink for me, but I did manage to catch up with bits and pieces from the National Ice Centre, from the CCM pad, the little rink, and it was another bad night in the office defensively for the Deeside Dragons. I can't remember the last time the Nottingham Lions scored 10. Chris Gadsby will hopefully pop up at this point, or Joe will have the stat to hand, but I cannot remember the point where Nottingham put 10 on anybody. But another game of why defend when you cannot defend. Deeside don't have any trouble scoring. Goals in this one from them, from Ryan Broster-Jones, Gary Simpson, Jared Dickinson, Ross Kennedy, and a 32nd of the season from Jake Witkowski. But they do not have an answer defensively to the Lions in this one. 4 goals for Alex Rushby, 2 for Luke Birchnell, and goals from Alish Padlek. His goal was beautiful, by the way. A 6-point night for Padlek. 1 from Tyler Somerton, 1 from Bailey Challens, and 1 from James Mather. As you look here, this is... like I say, poor Ollie Booth in that final period. 3 goals on 8 shots. It was just a horribly poor defensive performance from the Dragons on this one. Back to the drawing board for them. Fixtures then this weekend in North 1, which see 6 p.m. face-off on Saturday, the Blackburn Hawks and the Deeside Dragons. The Dragons will be desperately looking to try and be a bit more defensively solid this time out. 7 p.m. face-offs at Hobbsmoat Road for the Solihull Barons and Nottingham Lions. And over in Merseyside, the Widnes Wild taking on the Hull Jets. It's a 7:30 face-off for Yorkshire North 1 supremacy at the Castle, the Leeds Knights and the Sheffield Scimitars. It's then Derby Day for the Shims at Ice Sheffield. They take on the Nottingham Lions at 5:10 on Sunday, and 5:30 p.m. at the Forum for the Billingham Stars and the Leeds Knights. As we have a quick look at the North 1 table, 3 teams qualify for the playoffs in Billingham, Blackburn and Solihull as the top 3. The Stars, 9 points to the good, having played 1 game more than Blackburn, so the ball firmly in the court of Stephen Foster and his team. The table then below those top three: Deeside, Hull, Whitley, Nottingham, and Leeds on the inside, looking out to Widnes and Sheffield. Sheffield 5 points off the 5 points off the playoffs, having played 4 games more than the Knights. You think those extra signings are going to have to do some really heavy lifting very quickly. And as we know, the final of the North One Cup over the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd of February, the Billingham Stars and the Blackburn Hawks. Now, for anybody who remembers him playing in the playing for Swindon, playing for Basingstoke, I'm quite concerned and quite confused, having watched the video of the game-winning goal of this one. But Solent, who do a massive number on Slough, lose at home in overtime to the Swindon Wildcats off an Ollie Stone backhand overtime winner. Yeah. Confused and concerned. Either way, a big 2 points for the Wildcats to get this one into the extras, especially given the back and forth nature of this game. Kane Russell and Harry Harcup having the Devils 2-0 to the good at the end of the first, but ultimately the Wildcats coming all the way back. Goals from Jay Warren and Charlie Turner and Jan Kostel Jr. making it 3-2 early in the third period before Kane Russell tied things back up on the power play. But it's Ollie Stone with his 6th goal of the year. When did Ollie Stone score 6 goals in the past 7 seasons he played? What's going on there? Crazy numbers from him at Div 1 level. But either way, 2 points out of the night for the Wildcats. The Devils will have to make do with just the one. Meanwhile, Streatham, having to recover from their bad weekend in the Cup semi-finals the weekend before, had to do the business away at the Romford Buccaneers, and it was a tight, close game that the Buccaneers did some good work in, but ultimately the champs are the champs for a reason, and they do the business. It was 1-1 at the end of the first period. Aidan Doughty's goal cancelled out by Uri Husker, but then a goal early in the second period from Ryan Watt and a late goal from the head coach Ben Painter makes it 3-1 to Streatham, and they take all the points away from the Sapphire on this occasion. Big one potentially with a side with playoff position, but potential title implications on the line here between Chelmsford and Slough. It goes all the way to penalty shots before the Jets take the 2 points to the Chieftains 1 on this occasion. As you can see from the box score here, remember you can download all of these from nhlstats.wordpress.com. Back and forth, till eventually a very late power play goal from Connor Redmond with a minute and 35 seconds to go ties it up and takes it to the extras for they go into the shootout, and Seb Moore, back from injury that he sustained with the GB under-20s, back on the score sheet and doing the damage there. Goals for the Chieftains in this one from Sasha Maltsev, Halden Barnes, Garner, Mikey Power and Cam Bartlett. Goals for the Jets from Ben Ely Newman, Brandon Miles, Jacob Soper and Connor Redmond in the regulation time. Elsewhere on Saturday, a big heavy win. A double away weekend for the Dynamos back in the West Country. They were down in Cardiff Bay on Saturday evening and got a comfortable 9-2 win over the Cardiff Fire. One where Invicta were comfortable in this game. 3-0 up, 7-1 up before just keeping Cardiff well at bay for quite a period of time. Christians, Kazianovs and Aaron Moody for the Cardiff Fire. Goals from the Dynamos, who did travel relatively short in this one, but goals for them: a hat-trick for Tom Saw, 2 for Louis Colvin, and goals for Richard Harris, Aaron Connolly, James Laming and Ruskin Springer Hughes. Into Sunday then, and one with huge playoff implications in South 1 between the Oxford City Stars and the Cardiff Fire. This one, just like Slough and Chelmsford, goes all the way to the extras, but ultimately Jake Williams, the big hero at the end. Cardiff 4-2 up in the third period. Oxford, though, were 2-0 up themselves. 2 goals from Johan Persson, putting them in a comfortable position, but Cardiff came roaring back. Robert Price, Lewis Stevens, Aaron Moody and Will Thurlbert making it 4-2 at just before the end of the 37th minute. But then Ed Crotty with his first for the Stars, and Jake Williams getting the tying goal with just over 7 minutes to play before Williams was the hero in the shootout. The Stars get a big 2 points as they look to try and get themselves into the playoffs. It's them and the Fire basically battling it out for that 8th and final spot. Sunday at the Link Centre, the Dynamos having won in Cardiff Bay. They win at the Link Centre as well, 4-3, as they look to try and cement themselves in 5th place with the playoffs looming in, and another potential playoff tie with the Solent Devils. This one went really, really back and forth. Aaron Connolly putting the Dynamos ahead before goals from Jay Warren and Jan Kostel Sr. Put the Cats 2-1 to the good, but it was 2-2 at the end of the first, thanks to a goal from Ollie Bronneman. Cameron Pywell making it 3-2 to the Dynamos in the second period, but less than a minute later, Hayden Lee getting his 3rd of the season to make it 3-3, and then there's no goals for the rest of the regulation period and overtime as well, till it goes all the way to the shootout. Cam Pywell getting the extra point. The Dynamos take 5 from 6 across the weekend. And MK, well, they didn't win against Slough, but holding the Jets to only 6 goals is a pretty sizable achievement given some of the scorelines they have let up this year. But ultimately, a 5-point weekend for the Jets on top of everything else. Ollie Hemmings-Mayer, Connor Edmond, Tino Lindgren, Dylan Hilliker, Christian Moore and Seb Moore with the goals for the Jets in this one. The big issue here, the Thunder managed 7 shots to 77 for the Jets. It has to be a conversation at Thunder training about just putting the puck on net more from anywhere. And then, well, the Chieftains embarrassed the Red Hawks the week before, stealing the cup final away from them by shutting them out and then scoring the overtime winner into the bargain. But the Red Hawks turnabout is apparently fair play. They win by 3-0 against Chelmsford in regulation. Ben Painter and 2 goals from Danny Ingoldsby, the last one being an empty net goal, give Danny Milton the 38 shot shutout win and an important 3 points on the league table for the current champions. This coming weekend then, the 1st of February in South 1, 5 p.m. down in Gosport, a big one, the Solent Devils and the Streatham Redhawks. 5:15 p.m. at Sapphire between the Romford Buccaneers and the MK Thunder. 5:45 in Kent for the Invicta Dynamos. They will welcome the Cardiff Fire in an about face of last Saturday night. And 6:30 p.m. at the Hangar, the Slough Jets and the Oxford City Stars. On Sunday, then, it's Derby Day back at the Oxpens as the City Stars welcome the Swindon Wildcats for the second time this season. 6:45 p.m. for the other 2 games on Sunday. The MK Thunder take on the Invicta Dynamos and Streatham versus Slough. Can Streatham go back-to-back at home? A huge weekend really for the Redhawks. If you think that they get 6 points out of a weekend where they play Solent away and Slough at home, that's going to do massive amounts for their title charge. As it stands, the top 4 are as we knew, and they have already qualified for the playoffs. Streatham 2 games in hand on Slough and only 3 points behind. It's still very much advantage Ben Painter if they can win their games in hand. Invicta, well, they're a little way off. They're 15 points back of Solent, so the table is going to be what it is at the moment. It's certainly a 3-horse race for 5th place between Invicta, Romford and Swindon, and then it is a battle between Oxford and Cardiff. Cardiff still with 3 games in hand, although Oxford now overtake them into 8th spot because of record against each other. Just having a look there, 3-1 at the end of the second period in the Skydo. Mike Regish with a 3rd goal of the night for the Coventry Blaze in that one as we look to North 2. And a win away in Hull for the Billingham Buccaneers. They beat the Kingston Sharks by 5-3. 3-3 at one point in this game before the Buccaneers pulled themselves away. Billingham 2-0 up in the first period thanks to Sam Dowd and Ross Hanlon before things were tied up. Mackenzie Barker scoring in the first, Scott Howells in the second period before Billingham retook the lead through Simon Geldart. And then 3-3 at the end of the second thanks to Jack Hayward, but goals in the third from Lucas Dowdle and a second of the night from Simon Geldard, giving the Buccaneers the 3-point victory. A pretty decent performance. A 40-save night from Evan Byron Bates in net for the Sharks. 5 goals on 45 shots. Would have been nice if his defence had helped him out a little bit there. The Altrincham Aces got themselves another solid win as they look to keep cementing themselves in the playoff position. They win by 8-4 against Bradford, though Altrincham, to be fair, was 6-0 up after the half an hour mark, and it was a pretty comfortable one for them in the end, even if they maybe slacked off a little bit at the end, letting Bradford back into the game. But at 6-0 and 8-2, you wouldn't have bet against the Aces unless you really loved your 80s hockey. Goals for the hosts: a hat-trick for Malachi Budd, 2 for Jason Burgess, as well as goals from Ronnie Grimes, Elliot Hunt and Max Sullivan. 2 goals from Kieran Furlong, 1 from Ollie Massey and 1 from Lucas Vince, doing the scoring for the Bradford Bulldogs. And then we talked about it. We wondered when it would happen. And it's happened. The last undefeated record in the NIHL has fallen. The Sutton Sting lose on the 25th of January, having gone unbeaten from the beginning of the season until last Saturday night. But turnabout, as we said, turnabout's fair play. The Telford Tigers avenged their lone defeat, or their lone league defeat of the season. It was the Tigers' undefeated record that was taken from the Sting in Telford, and Telford go to the Sting's place of work and take their undefeated record from them. A massive, massive one for the Tigers, because now, effectively, North 2, because they only play each other one home and one away, it's going to come down to goal difference or somebody slipping up. Goals for the Tigers in this one, two from Vladimir Luka, two from Lucas Price, and goals from Ollie Hunt and Dan Mitchell. The goals for the Sutton Sting coming from two from Morgan Glasby and goals from Joe Colton and Lawson Glasby. Just look at the shots though. The Sting get outshot by the Tigers in this one. The Tigers doing the business when it needed to, and even then, Lewis King still making 44 saves on the night. I had to ask Joe about this one. The Sheffield Titans versus the Billingham Buccaneers, marked as Challenge Cup. Not sure what that was, what that is, but hey ho. Either way, the Titans won this one in overtime. Joe doesn't have a game sheet, so we can't really talk about it. But Swindon fans turned up in Ice Sheffield for their game against the Steel Dogs and caught the end of this one in overtime. I know the Titans won in overtime on the power play. That's what I've been told, and that's what I'm going with. As for the Bradford Bulldogs, 0-point weekend for them, but a win in regulation for the Kingston Sharks. Their 6th of the season as they win by 5-4 against the Bradford Bulldogs. All the goals scored by the 47th minute, so it was a pretty tense and tight one. The Bulldogs had pulled it back. They were 3-1 down. They called it back to 3-3 before Kingston made it 5-3. But ultimately, the points take their way back to Hull. Goals for the Bulldogs: 2 from Luke Alston, 1 from Kasper Andrew Kianic, and 1 from Cameron Williams. Goals for the Sharks: 2 from Tom Humphreys, and goals from Ellis Martin, Scott Howes, and Mackenzie Barker on that front. And then the Tigers, well, they had a really good weekend. 6 points on the board for them as they give the Deeside Ducks a bit of a walloping. It started off pretty badly. Dalton Thompson getting on the board for the Ducks after 22 seconds before Telford decided to wake up eventually. But it was 2-2 at the end of the second period. 2 goals from Vlad Luka, making it 2-1, and Stuart Cutting made it 2-2. Telford then really just said, "Now we've had enough of your nonsense now," and just go on a bit of a rampage in the end, winning by 11 goals to 2, and a 5-goal night for Vladimir Luka, his second 5-goal night since he dropped to play for the Tigers too. 2-goal nights for Ollie Hunt and Taylor Stanton, and goals from Connor McNaughton and Ben Washburn. The goals for the Ducks come from Stuart Cutting and Dalton Thompson, as we said in this one. The shot count makes fun reading, because that's 11 goals and 45 shots for the Tigers. Owie, 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 owie. Saturday, the 1st of February, then the Ducks go back to action. They get to try and recover against Sutton. Oh dear. 5 p.m. at the Deeside Ice Rink for that one. 5:30 for Telford Tigers 2 against the Billingham Buccaneers. Could be an interesting one. Potential banana skin for the Tigers there. 6:30 at the Sky Dome. The Coventry NIHL Blaze take on the Altrincham Aces. 5:30 p.m. Bradford versus Coventry. 5:45 Altrincham versus Deeside, and 7:20 on the small pad at the NIC on the CCM rink. The Nottingham Lions and the Sheffield Titans. Derby day at both ends for Nottingham in NIHL Division 1 and Division 2. If we look at the table in North 2, like we said, we've now got, amazingly, Altrincham have qualified for the playoffs, but Coventry haven't. So that's a fascinating one in and of itself. By the way, Sutton still lead the table, but the Tigers now have a game in hand, and goal difference is going to be the massive, massive fact here. And you look at the difference, Sutton have scored 128, Telford has scored 169, and we're looking down the barrel of goal difference deciding the league title. Billingham in 3rd, Coventry, Altrincham, Kingston, Bradford and Nottingham on the inside looking out. Sheffield Titans, though, not a million miles off the playoffs, a point behind the Nottingham Lions with 2 games in hand. A win this Sunday in Nottingham would put the Titans into the playoff spots. The Deeside Ducks, of course, still bottom. And then South 2. Not much happened this weekend in South 2. This will be really quick. Unfortunately, it's been a very, very tough year for Bristol Pitbulls. For Bristol Pitbulls 2. They just don't seem to have ever really gotten going. They've lost players to the Cardiff Canucks. They've lost players to elsewhere. But Haringey roll into town and they show no mercy. It is a 5-1 win for the Huskies as they look to try and keep their title hopes alive. Goals for the Huskies in this one come from Leo Sanchella, Matt Gannas. Has Matt Gannas moved? Oh dear, that's bad for Lee Valley. As well as Connor Smith, Stuart Appleby and Oliver Cooper. Ollie Shon with the lone goal for the Bristol Pitbulls. If Matt Gannas has joined Haringey, that's massive. That's really, really big. That's really, really big and really just sticks Lee Valley like properly in the mud, all things considered. Elsewhere, though, in terms of title, we talk about title chases. The Peterborough Phantoms really make a stamp and really make a statement. They win by 11 goals to 3 away at Invicta. Another crazy scoring night for the Phantoms, who just don't seem to be able to stop putting points on the board at times. Goals for the Mustangs in this one coming from Ed Stedman, Aaron Ferris and Sam Oliver. And then let's rattle our way through this one. A hat-trick for former Hong Kong international Jordan Ho. 2 goals for Jordan Little. And then lone goal nights from Dan Martin, James White, Leo Markey, Jack Sansby, Rob McDonald and Connor Pollard in this one. A 53-shot night for the Phantoms. Heath Prentice takes all 60 minutes in that one. Ouch for him. And then the lone goal on Sunday, a bad weekend for Invicta. A 0-point weekend. They lose in Gosport against the Solent Junior Devils, bolstered by all of their Division 1 players because the Solent Devils weren't playing on the Sunday. So all of the guys who are eligible to play for the juniors, including player coach Harry Cloutman, joins the fun, and they put Invicta thoroughly to the sword. Outshooting them as well by 40-16. Goals in this one for the hosts, 2 from Charlie Wedge, and then goals from Ash Barnes, Harry Cloutman, Joe Sylvester, Charlie Ottewell, Leo Harris and Ollie Cackett. Goals for the Invicta Mustangs coming from Ed Seven, Kevin Lake and Jack Rowland. That means, again, not a huge amount of games happening this weekend, but Invicta back to work. Again, they're away in Ali Pali this coming Saturday in the lone show in town for South 2. That's a 5:30pm face-off at Alexandra Palace. On Sunday, the Solent Junior Devils against the Bristol Pitbulls is a 5pm face-off in Gosport. 5:30 at the Spectrum for the Guildford Phoenix and the Oxford Rising Stars. Oxford have been a really tricky side this year and might fancy themselves as dark horses for the playoffs. We don't bet against the Invicta Mustangs, as we know, but they might try to steal that title from them. And then 6:30pm in Breton, the Peterborough Phantoms 2 versus the Chelmsford Warriors. As we have a look at the league table, and now we have 4 qualified. As we say, we have 4 qualified for the playoffs. Peterborough, Haringey, Guildford and Invicta are all into the postseason. Oxford, Cardiff, Solent and Chelmsford are on the inside looking out. Bristol and Lee Valley are on the outside looking in. As it stands in the league title race at the moment, though, the Guildford Phoenix have 6 games in hand on Peterborough and are 16 points back. The maths still very much in favour of Stuart Potts' side there. Haringey have played 3 games less than the Phantoms. They cannot catch them at this moment in time. Guildford are the only side at the moment who can overtake Peterborough. Joe being Joe, because here's the annoying thing. When I do the National League stuff, because it's all graphics and I can shrink it down, I can see it. When I'm doing the stuff for the other leagues, I can't see it. So Joe, because Joe is the most useful human being in the world. So same as the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup for the North, don't have a game sheet, none submitted. That'd be why Joe didn't put anything on there. Nice to know. Head-to-head, uneven games of the recent Coventry haven't qualified. They need 1 point at all, but there, that makes sense. Yeah, I entirely missed. I must have missed something because I follow the Lions on. I followed the Lions on Facebook and didn't see that come up, which is really annoying. But yeah, that's a pretty decent signing, all things considered, for Haringey for South 2. Because Gannas looked really impressive when I've seen him play, so it's just an extra added body. Haringey, you have to think, are turning their attention to the playoffs because I don't think they're going to catch Peterborough or Guildford. That must be Fantasy's last league game Sunday, 2nd of February. Wow, it is. Really, yeah. The scheduling is ridiculous. And also, go and look at Guildford's schedule, because I was speaking to Josh Sherrington about this, where they played Haringey and Oxford, and I think they've got Lee Valley twice and Solent twice. Like, the scheduling for South 2 has been all over the show. And this is potentially why the Phantoms are doing things like the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup as well, because the scheduling, if you're playing your last league game in February for a league that finishes in March before its playoffs, like, That is absurd. And all Peterborough get to do is just sit there, wait, and hope. That's not great. That's not good at all. Yeah, not great scheduling in South 2. Certainly though, because it is coming up before too long, my intention, because of the way things shake out, and because I've got to be in certain places at certain times because of life, my intention is to be at the first leg of the South 2 Cup final when it happens between Guildford and Peterborough, because that will obviously keep Peterborough occupied for one weekend. And yeah, Peterborough got the second. I've got the second leg because of ice time issues in Guildford, but it is going to be a two-legged affair this season. But I should be at the Spectrum for the first leg between Guildford and Peterborough. Looking forward to that one. Insert all your jokes about the amount of short-handed goals both Pollards will score. Either way, we are at about 9:15. Peterborough will have the cup final and then the playoffs. Yeah. Have they played all their Eddie Joseph games as well? I've got lost track on that one. Either way, we've gone through every game. Every game of the National Ice Hockey League structure has been spoken about. We've done all 5 divisions. Every single game has been spoken about. That means open the door. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to talk about from the NIHL, the Elite League, the WNIHL, which I'm sure Andrew's about to stick a bunch of results in that we'll talk about momentarily, NHL, and yeah, there's some big news in the world of hockey today. Don't worry, that's coming at the end. Don't sweat. So we'll talk about that one in a bit. But yeah, anything else anybody wants to chat about, chuck it in the chat. Let's have some fun and just talk our way through the last few minutes. So here's the thing. If you're Peterborough, and that's your gap between the playoffs and that, do you start organising friendlies against anybody you can find? Not too many WNHL games due to GB U18s in Riga, which Ruby Newlands was forward of the tournament and Lucy Holiday netminder of the tournament. So there you go. If you haven't seen it, those were the results. GB beating Kazakhstan by 3-1, the Netherlands by 3-0. New Zealand get beaten 16-1. Of course, the 3-2 game against Latvia, and then a final one to round off the tournament, a 10-2 win against Chinese Taipei. Taiwan. It's Taiwan. I don't know why we bother with this ridiculousness just to appease China. They call themselves Taiwan. I'm calling them Taiwan. Results then from last weekend in the WNIHL Division 2A, an 8-1 win for the Cambridge Kodiaks over the Slough Sirens. Clearly not bad enough to call off midway through. In Division 2B, Coventry winning 5-1 against the Bristol Huskies, and a 12-2 win for the Invicta Dynamics away at Ali Pali against the Haringey Greyhounds. In North 1 last weekend, a shutout win for the Nottingham Vipers on the road in Dumfries against the Solway Sharks ladies, and a 1-1 tie on the Sunday between the Chelmsford Cobras and the MK Falcons. Upcoming fixtures this weekend. Saturday sees all fun things happen in Edinburgh. Caledonia take on the Whitley Bay Beacons 2, and in the south, the Oxford City Stars take on the Slough Sirens at Oxpens. 1 North on Sunday, Sheffield Shadows take on the Kingston Diamonds, a Sheffield versus Hull derby there, and in the south, MK versus Cardiff, and Chelmsford take on the Swindon Topcats. What's that from Dave? I was at Slough Sirens versus Cambridge Kodiaks. Looked like the Sirens were going to hold up the Kodiaks after period 1, but the Kodiaks let loose with a comfortable win. You've been to a few Kodiaks games, Dave, so I'm glad you're enjoying it. What else we got here from Andrew? South 2B, Chelmsford Pythons versus the Lee Valley Vampires, and Invicta Dynamics versus the Haringey Greyhounds. That's other action this weekend in the WNIHL. New Scottish women's ice hockey team, the Fife Arctic Foxes and the Dundee Royals. If you want to hear a little bit more about Scottish women's ice hockey and what's happening there, as well as the SNL and bits and pieces, go check out the new Hockey Stories piece, my new interview with Jamie Thompson from Scottish Ice Hockey and the Solway Sharks. It's on the YouTube channel. Go down, subscribe now, go watch all the videos and stuff. It's actually quite a short interview. It was mostly because it's shorter than a lot of the interviews I do, because Jamie had to go to Sharks training, so it's only about 40 minutes. That one, so plenty of time to just sit back and kick back. And the way the interviews go up in kind of podcast form, you should be able, if you've got YouTube music, to just stick it on and listen to it there. What is the optimum import level going forward for the National League? I don't see any reason to move it past 3 at the moment, really. Because I want to encourage I want to encourage British teams to play British players more. I venture it will probably get increased to 4. I'm not sure it needs to be or should be, But I think that's probably the direction of travel. For me at the moment, you keep it at 3. Because I don't think the National Division should be moving its import limit. I actually think the Elite League should be moving its import limit down. I realise that's beyond optimistic, but that's what I feel. I venture it will go up. I'm not sure whether it should, but there is a conversation. There's a lot of conversations to be had between now and the start of next season. But I venture it's something that's already been discussed. And if bases don't come back into the league, you venture, given the player pool in the sort of the south of England, that the import limit will be put up to compensate on that. As a Raiders fan, I wouldn't go beyond 3. Housing in that area is expensive. I mean, this was one of the reasons cited why MK in the Elite League was always a bad idea, because where do you house like 15 guys new to the area when housing is so expensive on that front? So, because the Raiders have like one house, don't they? Because I think we saw it in one of the Raiders vlogs. So unfortunately, kind of stopped. They did loads of those, and then they stopped doing them. But I think we saw it was like Ewan Hill and like a bunch of the imports in one house. I'm sorry, it was Aidan Wilson. Aidan Wilson was in with the imports. But yeah, for me at the moment, I don't see there's a bunch of things the National Division should change. I don't actually think the import limit is the thing the National Division needs to worry about changing right now. I think the National League needs a salary floor and a salary cap. I think it needs to consider. What else do I think? Because the cup format's okay, the league format's generally fine. I think it needs to consider what it does, because 11 teams is not really great for the league. I think it needs to figure out bringing in a 12th if Basingstoke do not come back immediately into the national, what they do with that. So that's a bit hard to do. Potentially anything that happens with Fife, potentially anything that happens with any other Elite League team that turns around and says, actually, we want to keep going, but we need to step out. Still think the optimal would be 8-4-2-1 down in the structure. I wouldn't argue with that. I don't think that's terrible. I don't see the reason why Division 2 South needs to be able to have two or three imports. That'd be that. Yeah, I don't. I think that's relatively sensible in that sense. I mean, obviously there are some people saying no, eight's not enough. That sounds like a problem. That sounds like a them problem. I mean, is 8 to 3 too big a jump? I mean, suppose maybe, yeah. I can see the rationale for it. Edinburgh. Talked about this last week, Jamie. I think if Edinburgh were to leave the Scottish National League, they should go to North 1 first. I think they need to be able to prove that they can sustainably play in a league that would take them from themselves as the most northerly team down to Solihull before they start trying to go down to Romford. I think they need to, because the issue with Edinburgh was the money dried up. And we're asking them to jump from the SNL to going all the way down to London. Would there be enough Brit players to fill the void? Now, Joe will have his own answer to this one. My answer to this one is, ultimately, they'll get better if they play. From a national team perspective, might it see the national team step back a little bit? Potentially. But if we have our own house in order, the national team programme will rebound. And I think this was the thing as well from the question and answer bits and pieces from Henry Stalins, the chief exec of Ice Hockey UK and England Ice Hockey at the same time. Firstly, it was a bit of a game of, are we sure that's a real question? But also they talk about what they want to do with the national team programme and speaking to the Elite League. There was a lot of sort of very interesting speak of, we're not there yet, but we're having a lot of discussions, because there wasn't a lot of great substance in some of the answers, but I can kind of appreciate why there wouldn't be a lot of substance. Their strategy document, which I think is a bit loose to say. It's a pamphlet. It's not really a strategy document. It's not big enough to be called a document in that sense. But they've only just released it, so expecting them, given their plan is British qualification for the 2030 Olympics. So yeah, that is time limited, but they do deserve, I think, a little bit of extra time to kind of really stamp on what they're doing. Joe says, I'm not saying do it now, but I think should be the aim. Stop losing so many players who just walk away from the sport because of the glass ceiling. Hugely, and that's one thing I think where Joe and I agree. The Elite League has held the door of its ivory tower shut for too long and said imports when the answer is get involved in developing British players. But this is an argument I've made for quite some time. I've made it on A View from the Bridge. I got told by somebody on Twitter that my view was myopic, which felt very, very strange. My view was myopic by trying to develop the talent we have. Didn't quite agree with that one. My argument got called cyclical as well, but it's a very cyclical argument because we're still having the same arguments in 2025 that we were having in 2005 when I started watching British hockey. I don't know what to tell you on that front. Let's just have a quick see if there's any other news popping up whilst we're talking. Nothing in the immediacy. Although I have just seen Joe has stuck the tweet out, so I'm just going to hit retweet on it now, because it looks like we are getting the return of the NIHL Stats Yearbook, which is pretty exciting, all things considered. I'm not sure what I do, Joe, because I read about the Bison last time and we're not playing. So if you want my help, you'll have to ask. You have to tell me what you want me to do. But yes, that's some pretty big, exciting news. The 22-23 NIHL Stats Yearbook was pretty awesome. It was a really, really great resource. So if Joe is going to look to try and do that again, I've just retweeted the tweet. Get in touch if you want to write about a team. When you put it that way, I see your point. Maybe staggered by 2 imports per season for a while. The big issue, I think, is the Elite League will struggle to agree to it because too many at the top end benefit from the status quo. It's why when I put out Grand Ideas, a well-known Elite League figure said, none of these are possible. Of course, well, no, they are entirely possible. One of the ideas in Grand Ideas was a silly nonsense idea where they said you should get an extra import for winning the 3rd, 4th place game at Nottingham, but the notion that things can't change, it's a case of wanting to change. Too many in the Elite League, at the top end of the Elite League in terms of it, I don't think want to change, and there's the bigger issue. If only there was a National League you could write about. I shall write about D-side. No, I'll figure that one out. You tell me where the gaps are, Joe, and I'll help you out with that one. Don't you worry. Just double checking. Like I say, it doesn't appear to be any other earth-shattering news. 3-2 though at the Sky Dome. Brett Ferguson, the captain, with a goal for the Guildford Flames. I mean, Linz have beaten Asiago 7-3 in the lone game in the Ice League tonight. I think otherwise we're heading towards the end of bits and pieces. Where are we? We've got 4 minutes off 9:30. So what we'll start edging towards. We'll say last call and give people some time to get some extra bits and pieces in. Fun in the NHL. Moritz Seider scoring an own goal was quite funny. Shouldn't be funny. Gritty being his usual menace, and Karate kicking an LA Kings fan / stunt person. Don't play Bop It with other fans, I think it'd probably be what I'd say. Literally playing Bop It. But yeah, had a weekend. Having a weekend off of hockey was cool, and it was good because, like I say, it was really nice to be able to kind of give back some time to Nathan and Emily for the amount of support they give me when I disappear off. But back to it, like I say, Swindon on Saturday. Not been Swindon for a little while. Be good to get back and seeing them again. I'll go through the list, but the bits and pieces we have coming up. I have planned I've actually had to commit to it because I'm planning my hockey excursion. The plan at the moment is in March. Friday the 14th of March, my plan is to be at Bristol versus Swindon at Planet Ice Bristol. And then Saturday the 15th of March, my plan is to be at D-side versus Billingham. That is the plan. I've got an Airbnb sorted out in up north, in North Wales. I need to figure out where I'm going to stay in Bristol at the moment because there's too many options and I had decision paralysis. So I'll figure that one out. But yes, that is the plan, to be in D-side to be in Bristol on that Friday night, D-side on the Saturday, and then come home on the Sunday. Like I say, in a couple of weeks' time, we'll start the raffle for 2 adult passes to the Steel City Showdown. Mikko Rantanen trade, yeah, I don't get it. I don't really get it. I get why. Tony D'Angelo signing for the Islanders. That was even more nonsensical because he's an idiot. But yeah, just a. I was struggling with it, Karen, to be perfectly honest, because firstly, because as a Caps fan, I don't pay tons and tons of attention to the West anyway. So I was like, Colorado have made a trade. I was like, cool. And then saw what they'd done with Carolina and kind of went, made the sort of face like a confused Yorkshire Terrier, just sort of cocked my head to the side. I went, I don't get it, but we'll figure that one out later. But yeah, I think it's good for Colorado. I'll come to D-side to watch that one with you. I've been told that Billingham are putting on one of the fan buses, so there'll be a lot of folk in D-side by the sounds of it. So my worry is getting a ticket for that one. But I think they come out like the week before as well. So I've got to do a lot of I've got to do some quick manoeuvrings on that one. Otherwise, I'll be having to very quickly change where I'm going that weekend. But that's the plan. I'll potentially try and speak to the Dragons and get sorted out with that one. But yeah, that's the plan. Finally getting to a North 1 game is the grand plan there. And when I saw that it was D-side versus Billingham, so we get Jake Witkowski versus Ian Brown, I thought it'd be a really, really good one. The Billingham folk have been moaning at me to go up to T-side. T-side's was a little bit too far in the immediacy. The wife said, "Can you go closer? Can you come a little bit closer to home?" And I said, "How about this? Because then it's a 4-hour drive home for me." And I thought that'd be okay. So we'll do that. Ovi, it's a case of when, not if. Agreed. He is going. He already, in my opinion, is the greatest goal scorer of all time, and it will be proven when he eventually beats Gretzky. Just a case now of, like I say, of when it's this season or next. At this point, like 20 empty net goals for Ovechkin. Just the Caps just constantly setting him up, and it'll be fun. Either way, we're going to end it there. Like I say, I'm still hearing a looping audio, which is a bit strange, and I'll try and fix that for next week. So yeah, like I say, we'll call it there. I'll sort it for you, buddy. Don't worry. Oh, thank you, Graham. Much obliged. Flames equalised. Charlie Curtie he's been a very, very good. Charlie Curtie on the power play. He's either jumped in and scored from about like 2 feet, or he's blasted it in from the point, knowing what Charlie Curtie is like. We'll call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Of course, go check out the latest bits and pieces on there. There'll be a new Banners on the Road coming next week from the game between the Swindon Wildcats and the Berkshire Bees. And of course, our Hockey Stories series, long form pieces of content, both written and audio visual, where we go from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond, to look at the big stories from across the world of hockey, both history and all sorts. And of course, our newest piece, our interview with Jamie Thompson of Scottish Ice Hockey in Remember the North, the state of Scottish Ice Hockey, the back catalogue of the BOTW podcast, as well as our free-to-download tabletop ice hockey game, Dice Hockey, is there to download. If you enjoy it when you download it, please do stick some money towards Parkinson's UK. My dad has Parkinson's and Parkinson's dementia. It sucks, and any money we can get towards research and a cure would be appreciated. But either way, nearly 14 years worth of stuff to check out over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Rather than rattling off all of the social links, go check down below. Linktree, linktr.ee/banners on the wall. You can get the links to our Facebook, to our Twitter, and all the other fun bits and pieces there, including the link to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Banners on the Wall is never going to go behind a paywall. It's just not how we do things here. But if you like what you get, if you like the content that BOTW does, and you'd like to chuck some money into the hat to keep things rolling along, please do chuck some money in. If you can't, please feel no obligation. If you can't afford to, and you don't want to, you don't have to put any money in there. But maybe you can help in other ways. Share something out. Tell your friend. Tell the cat. Tell the budgie. Whatever. Spread the word. That's all I kind of ask. Because there's plenty of stuff there to do. And also, the great bit is we are live on YouTube every Wednesday night. Go down there, hit the subscribe button, like the video, share the video, tell your friends. Let's get more people in here on a Wednesday night. Like I say, we're heading. The hope is to try and edge towards 500 subscribers by the end of the season. Looking a bit of a tall task, but hey, if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. That'd be really, really awesome. It just helps with like visibility and stuff. As I say, let's keep the algorithm hamster happy, fat, and fed. Of course, like I say, it's Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. The first, best, and only live show that covers all 5 divisions of the NIHL. That is here on a Wednesday night. The BOTW What's Current stream. We'll end slightly on a slightly somber note, because of course the news came today from Berlin of the passing of 26-year-old German international forward Tobias Eder. Eder had played for a bunch of teams. Originally, he was born in Miesbach, came through the system in Bad Tölz. He played for Munich, he played for Dusseldorf, and last season was a DEL champion with the Eisbären Berlin. Unfortunately, during his medicals in August, before the season began, it was discovered he had a malignant tumour, and they started treatment immediately. He appeared on his own Instagram page back in November, firstly having gotten engaged, and secondly off the back of the traditional October Pink in the Rink games that Berlin play, thanking everybody for their donations and basically looking in pretty decent health. He also appeared in December in Munich for the honouring of a former Munich player. Unfortunately, his health took a turn for the worse. It was announced yesterday that the game due to be played tonight between Ingolstadt and Berlin had been postponed due to his declining health. And unfortunately, we got the news today that Tobias Eder passed away at, like I say, just the age of 26 years old. 26 years old is no age to die. I'm edging towards being double that age. Some of you will be older, some of you will be younger. Ultimately, I'm not one of these people who tries to treat cancer as this sort of thing that you're fighting against. Cancer doesn't think, cancer doesn't feel, cancer is what it is. And unfortunately, the way things are, too many people end up losing their life to it. I look towards really, really smart people that I work with, because I work in the NHS at the moment with lots of people who work daily to help cancer doctors do the things that they do. Ultimately, Eder was a really talented hockey player. He was a fiance, he was a son, he was a brother, he was a grandson, he was a bunch of different things, and ultimately it's a life cut far too short. And it's just sad to think that a really talented hockey player has lost his ability to play and lost his life, he's lost his life not because of old age, and he's not lost his career because the time came to step away, but because of something none of us can control, and that's really sad. It feels really strange to say it, but ultimately we have to keep going, in the same way that we all have to keep going when we kind of meet bits of tragedy. And if there's anything that 23-24 taught British hockey, is that we can take tragedy and we can find a way to keep going. Love and light to his friends, to his family, to his teammates. And thinking of Liam Kirk at the moment, who's one of our own, caught up in this too. Might sound hard, but I will say it anyway. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do your very, very best to be safe. As my friend Scotty Was would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time. If you're in Swindon next weekend, this coming Saturday, do please come say hello. Otherwise, we'll join you back here on Wednesday night for the BOTW What's Current stream. And to Toby Eder, rise in power, my friend. Take care, and we'll see you when we see you.